All right, counsel, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. Detective Spinner, I've put a number of boards up here. Can you reach the ones closest to your right, and on that first board, can you read the exhibit number, please?
735.
Do you recognize the latent image in that picture?
There's an item listed as being taken on item 317U, Union, latent number 1.
Did you make a comparison of that print in this case?
Yes, we did.
Did you come to any conclusions when you made your comparison of that fingerprint?
Yes, we did.
Can you turn to the next exhibit, please? Are you looking at exhibit 757?
Yes, I am.
And what is depicted in that exhibit?
It is a charted latent fingerprint comparison between the photograph from item 317U, Union, page 10, quadrant 16, latent 1, against a known fingerprint of Gavin Arvizo's right middle finger.
So you were able to identify Gavin Arvizo's right middle finger on exhibit, a magazine labeled 317U?
Yes, sir, we were.
Okay. Coming to your opinion that is his fingerprint, did you present our office with a PowerPoint presentation to help explain that to the jury?
Yes, we did.
Your Honor, if I may have input 1, please. I'd like to show it to the jury, please. Take a look up at the screen.
What's the exhibit number on the presentation?
757, Your Honor.
Did you? I left them with the court reporter for some strange reason, Judge. It's going to be next in order, exhibit number 772. I'm going to go right to, thank you, this image. That was the latent fingerprint that you compared.
That's affirmative, sir, yes.
Okay, and I want you to guide me through this. What is this?
That is the known inked impression from the right middle finger of Gavin Arvizo.
And what does this image depict?
Okay, this is where an identification of 12 charted points of identification which we found within this particular fingerprint which we compared to the latent fingerprint.
Is that what's shown on the screen?
Yes, sir. That, number 1 is an upward moving ending ridge.
Okay. Did you compare an entire finger pad against an entire finger pad when you made your comparison?
No, sir. In this case, we had the right, or the left side of the completely rolled finger, which included from a little bit inside the delta area, which is the area I just pointed to this area, up into the top and down below the delta area.
Okay. Can you explain what's on this next slide, please?
That is where the second characteristic is located and charted, and that is also an ending ridge, and it's a downward thrusting ending ridge.
And this image?
Number 3 is also a charted ending ridge. It would be an upward thrusting ending ridge.
Number 4?
4 is another ending ridge, again in the same spatial relationship to the other 3, and it's also an upward thrusting ending ridge.
Number 5, please?
5 is another ending ridge, again in the same spatial and ridge count relationship with number 4, 3, 2 and 1, and it's also a downward thrusting ending ridge.
Number 6?
6 is also an ending ridge, downward thrusting, in the same spatial relationship as the first 5.
Number 7?
7 is a bifurcation, which again is 2 ridges flowing into one. It's an upward moving bifurcation, in other words, opens downward, and it's in the same spatial relationship as the first 6 items.
Okay. And 8?
8 is an ending ridge. It's an upward thrusting ridge, again in the same spatial relationship to 1 through 7.
9?
9 is a bifurcation. It's a downward opening, upward moving bifurcation, again in the same spatial relationship with the previous items.
10?
10 is another bifurcation, opening downward, in the same spatial relationship as 1 through 9.
11?
11 is an ending ridge, coming up just inside of the delta area. It's an upward flowing ending ridge and having the same spatial relationship as the previous mentioned items.
Number 12?
12 is a bifurcation. It's just above the delta area, and again with the same spatial relationship, having, with the other items. 1 through 12 all have the same spatial and ridge count relationships.
Okay. Is that essentially the procedure you went through to create chart 757?
Yes, sir, it is.
Your Honor, I'd like to move 757 into evidence.
It's admitted.
The next 2 exhibits I'd like to show you are 726 and 748. Do you recognize 726?
Yes, sir, I do.
And what is that, please? Explain to the jury.
It's a latent fingerprint that was photo-documented from item 317L, page 126, marked as latent number 1.
Okay. What's the next board? 748?
748, yes, sir.
And is that your comparison between the image in 723, sick, and somebody's fingerprint?
Yes, it is.
Tell the jury what that comparison is of, please.
This is a latent fingerprint comparison between the latent fingerprint photo documented on item 317L, page 126, marked latent number 1, and the right index finger of star Arvizo.
Okay. Did you prepare a PowerPoint presentation as an example of that one as well?
Yes, sir, one was prepared.
Okay. The star Arvizo PowerPoint, Your Honor, is Exhibit 773. While that is loading, there it is. Yes, it's taking its time. This was the latent fingerprint of star Arvizo found on item 317L. The magazine, Finally Legal.
Correct.
And is that?
That is the latent fingerprint from item 726, which is the latent fingerprint we photographed on page 317L, page 126, marked as latent number 1.
Okay. And this is?
That is the right index fingerprint, as photographed, of Mr. Star Arvizo.
And is it where your comparison began?
That's where we started making the chart, yes, sir.
Okay. I'd like you to explain whether these images are to scale relative to the normal human being and relative to each other.
No, these are cropped and expanded. And the scaling between the fingerprint or the known print on the left and the latent print on the right is. The one on the right is slightly smaller.
Okay. Is that the same for the previous presentation? The scaling is different between the two?
It could be, yes, sir.
The board is right there if you want to look at it.
The scaling on this one would be just slightly reversed. The latent is a little larger than the known inked print.
When you say, this one, Your Honor, could we have a clarification as to what exhibit the witness is looking at?
The 757.
Thank you.
Could you describe what point number 1 is, please?
Point number 1 is an upward thrusting ending ridge.
Okay. You mentioned earlier something about a feature being in sequence, ridge sequence?
Ridges in sequence. That would be the number of ridges basically between the two details, such as we have an ending ridge at that location and an ending ridge at that location, or bifurcation. You follow this one down, the ridge line down, and then you go over one to that, and here, starting at 1, again, work your way up, and you have two ending ridges flowing in the opposite direction.
Okay.
So.
Go ahead, you were going to finish.
I was going to say, so you have to find the same relationships in both the known print and the latent fingerprint.
Okay. Point number 2?
Point number 2 is a downward flowing ending ridge 3 ridges up and over from point number 1.
Okay. And that's the same on both images?
Yes, it is.
And a third area of similarity?
That is also an ending ridge, which is 2 ridges above point number 2.
Okay. Area number 4?
4 is another charted ending ridge, which is at the other end of the short ridge starting at point number 3.
And as you're examining these points, you're looking for the feature, the ridge sequence and the spatial relationship between the two?
That's correct.
Okay. Number 5?
Number 5 is a bifurcation. This ridge actually has a slight space here, but actually bifurcates into this one, and then it comes out in this direction. So 5 is the location of the bifurcation of the two ridges actually split off from each other.
Okay. Number 6?
6 is the ending ridge created by the short ridge, which flows off the bifurcation underneath the main ridge.
And number 7?
7 is another ending ridge flowing across the top from left to right, one ridge above the previous ending ridge of 6.
And number 8, please?
8 is another ending ridge following the furrow, or the white area, downward from 7 to 8. And then it shows up there.
The lines on the latent fingerprint, the image on the right, the white areas correspond to the dark areas on the image on the left?
Yes, sir. That's what happens when you develop a latent fingerprint using cyanoacrylate, or super glue. The super glue polymerizes with the latent fingerprint moistures and turns the print ridges actually white, and the furrows are actually a darker color.
Okay.
Just reversed from your normal fingerprint.
So a light area on the image on the left would be a dark area on the image on the right?
That's correct.
Number 9, please?
Number 9 is an ending ridge at this location 4 ridges down from number 6.
Number 10, please?
10 is a bifurcation where 2 ridges fuse together to form 6 ridges down from number 9. And the same spacing as this one.
How about number 11?
11 is another bifurcation. It's a downward opening bifurcation on the second ridge down, just above the recurve forming the core.
And number 12?
12 is an upward thrusting ending ridge in the furrow just to the right of item number 11.
Is it common nomenclature to call these points of comparison, or is there some other term you refer to them to?
I refer to them as identifiable characteristics. Some people refer to them as Galton details. Some people refer to them as unique details. They're all synonymous.
With this particular fingerprint match, did you find only 12? What did you call them?
Characteristics.
Characteristics of individualization?
Yes. There were additional characteristics located.
Approximately how many?
25.
There were 25 points that matched?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to end this one and start loading the other, so. Do you have a fingerprint comparison up there where you found a match on one of Michael Jackson's prints?
Yes.
Would you please state for the record what the latent print exhibit number is?
It's item 727.
And the print comparison chart corresponding to that item is?
749.
Your Honor, I request item 748. The charts depicting the match of star Arvizo be admitted into evidence.
It's admitted.
Item number 727. Where was that latent taken from?
This item was from item 317-0, Ocean, page 2, latent number 1.
And did you prepare a PowerPoint presentation for that as well?
Yes, sir, one was prepared.
Is it ready?
It is. Thank you, Your Honor. And is that the latent fingerprint image that you used for your comparison?
Yes, sir, it is. And that is Mr. Jackson's known left thumbprint.
And this is a side-by-side comparison?
Yes, it is.
Again, issues of scale remain the same?
The scaling is not totally accurate as far as the totally the same exact size.
Okay. And what is this identifying characteristic?
That identifying characteristic is a ridge ending which is one ridge above the recurve forming the core area of the fingerprint or the thumbprint.
Number 2?
Number 2 is a bifurcation. If you follow number 1 upward and to the left, you see where it fuses and joins into the above ridge, forming the bifurcation which opens from left to right.
Number 3, please?
Number 3 is a ridge ending. 7 ridge counts over from number 2 that the ridge number 2 actually ends on.
Number 4, please?
4 is a bifurcation located above the bifurcation for number 2.
Number 5, please?
5 is a ridge ending located in the upper part of the print 8 ridges above the ridge that number 3 is located on.
Number 6?
6 is another ridge ending located one ridge above number 5 and forward.
Number 7?
7 is a bifurcation which opens to the right 4 ridges below number 5.
This is Exhibit 774, Your Honor, the PowerPoint. 8?
Number 8 is an ending ridge which is the lower fork of the bifurcation marked at number 7.
Number 9?
9 is a bifurcation which, if you count down 4 ridges and go slightly forward, it fuses into the ridge 1 ridge below.
And number 10?
10 is a bifurcation. Count down 1 ridge and then go to the right, and you find where 2 ridges fuse together forming a bifurcation that opens to the left.
Number 11?
11 is an ending ridge which is just below the bifurcation at 10.
And number 12, please?
12 is an ending ridge, which is the other end of the short ridge from 11 to 12.
Okay. And on this particular positive identification, did you find more than 12?
We found a total of 17 total points.
Okay. And are those the red dots that you put on the exhibit?
Yes, sir, they are.
They're very difficult to see in here. Are they on your chart?
Yes, they are. And I can point them out with a laser pointer, if you'd like, sir.
Go ahead, please.
We have 2 ending ridges at this location. An ending ridge at this location. Bifurcation at this location. Another bifurcation at this location.
Is there a reason why not to chart more than 12 individualizing characteristics?
When I'm building a chart, and we don't build that many of them, I don't like to put too many lines in to mark every point because of the probability of confusing people and have too many lines running back and forth through the chart and possibly crossing lines to get to all the points, which then makes it very difficult to follow backwards. So it was done for clarity.
Okay. I think we're done with our slideshow, Your Honor. Exhibit 749 is the exhibit that contains the PowerPoint we just saw.
Yes, it is, sir.
In chart format? I move 749 into evidence, Your Honor.
It's admitted.
Do you recognize Exhibit 746, Detective Spinner?
Yes, I do.
And what is depicted in Exhibit 746?
It is a fingerprint chart showing the latent comparison between the latent fingerprint photographed on item 304D, David, page 52, marked latent number 1, and the left little finger of Mr. Jackson.
Did you make a positive identification?
Yes, we did.
Move 746 into evidence.
It's admitted.
Exhibit number 747, do you recognize that?
Yes, sir. That is a chart created showing the identification made on the fingerprint which was photographed on item 317L, Lincoln, page 31, marked latent number 1, against the left middle finger of Star Arvizo.
Move 747 into evidence.
It's admitted.
Exhibit number 750?
Okay. Number 750 is item latent fingerprint photographed on item 317R, Robert, page 54, latent 1N. And N indicates this is an anhydride developed fingerprint, not a super glue developed fingerprint.
Your Honor, we'd move 750 into evidence.
It's admitted.
Oh, I thought you did.
It's a comparison against the left thumb of Mr. Jackson and a positive identification was made.
Now we'd like to move it into evidence, Your Honor, 750. Exhibit 751, do you recognize that?
751 is a photograph of the latent fingerprint photographed on evidence item 317R, Robert, page 92, marked latent number 1, with the left little finger of Gavin Arvizo.
Is that a positive identification?
Yes, it was.
Exhibit number 752, please?
752 is a chart of the fingerprint comparison made from the picture, or the fingerprint photo documented on item 317R, Robert, page 92, marked latent number 2, and it was compared and identified, the left ring finger of Gavin Arvizo.
Is that a positive identification?
Yes, it is, sir.
Exhibit 753, please?
753 shows a photograph of the latent fingerprint located on item 317R, Robert, page 92, marked latent number 4. This latent fingerprint was compared against the left index finger of Gavin Arvizo and a positive fingerprint comparison was completed.
Move 751 in evidence.
It's admitted.
Exhibit 754?
Exhibit 754 shows a photograph of a latent fingerprint photographed on item 317S, Sam, page 62, latent number 1. This item was compared against the right thumb of Mr. Jackson, and a positive identification was completed.
Move 754 into evidence, Your Honor.
It's admitted. It's admitted.
Did I move 752, Judge?
I don't think so.
Move it now, please.
It's admitted.
Exhibit 755?
755 shows a photograph of a fingerprint photo documented on item 317S, Sam, page 87, latent number 1. It was compared and identified against the left ring finger of Mr. Jackson.
Is that a positive identification?
Yes, sir, it is.
We'd like to move 755 into evidence.
It's admitted.
Exhibit number 756, please?
756 shows a charted comparison using the photograph of the fingerprint photographed on item 317T, Tom, page 3, latent number 1, against the left thumb of Mr. Jackson.
The result of that comparison?
It was a positive identification.
Move 756 into evidence.
It's admitted.
Exhibit 758?
758 shows a charted comparison between a latent fingerprint photographed on item 317, Y, or yellow, page A, marked latent number 1. And it was compared against the left index finger of Gavin Arvizo.
And the results?
It was a positive identification.
Move 758 into evidence.
It's admitted.
Exhibit 759?
759 shows a charted comparison using the fingerprint photographed from item 321A, Adam, page 3, marked latent number 1, against the known fingerprint of the right thumb of Mr. Jackson.
And the result of that comparison?
It was a positive comparison.
We'd like to move 759 into evidence.
It's admitted.
Exhibit 760?
760 shows a charted comparison between a latent fingerprint photographed on item 321A, Adam, page 29, marked latent number 1, and the known fingerprint of Mr. Jackson's right thumb, and it was a positive identification.
Move 760 into evidence.
It's admitted.
761, please?
761 shows a latent fingerprint photographed on item 321E, Edward, page 1, marked latent 1, and the known fingerprint of Mr. Jackson's left thumb, our left thumbprint.
And the result of that comparison?
That was a positive comparison.
I'd like to move 761 into evidence.
It's admitted.
Exhibit 762, please?
762 shows, is a charted comparison. It shows a photograph of a latent fingerprint photographed on item 321E, Edward, page 7, marked latent number 1, compared against the known right thumb of Mr. Jackson.
And the result of that comparison?
It's a positive comparison.
Move 762 into evidence.
It's admitted.
Exhibit 763, please?
763 is a charted comparison showing a latent fingerprint photographed on item 321F, Frank, page 11, marked latent number 1, and the right thumb of Mr. Jackson.
And the result of that comparison?
It's a positive comparison.
Move 763 into evidence.
It's admitted.
Exhibit 764, please?
764 shows a latent fingerprint, which was photographed on item, correction, 363M, Mary, page 57, marked latent number 2, against the known right thumb of Mr. Jackson.
And the result of that comparison?
It was a positive comparison.
Okay. Move 764 into evidence.
It's admitted.
At this time, Your Honor, I would like to publish, via PowerPoint, Exhibit 746 through 764.
All right.
Judge, he hasn't moved 751 into evidence.
Did I miss 751?
You just didn't ask to have it received into evidence.
If I missed 751, I would like to move it into evidence at this time.
It's admitted.
Thank you, Judge. If I may have, input 1 inch again, Your Honor. If you could please compare what is on the board to the exhibit in front of you and read the exhibit number for the jury, please.
This exhibit number is exhibit number 746.
Is that the positive identification you made with Michael Jackson's left little finger on page 52 of the magazine entitled, Barely Legal?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Move to the next exhibit, please. Is that exhibit 747?
That's correct.
Would you look at the screen, please? Does that accurately depict the positive identification of Star Arvizo's left middle finger on page 31 of the magazine entitled, Finally Legal?
Yes, sir, it does.
Are there additional points of comparison on that aside from the 12 that you've marked?
Yes, sir, there are.
How many total comparison points are on that exhibit, if you know, off the top of your head? You may refer to your notes, if you wish.
Mr. Nicola, you haven't pushed the appropriate button down there to magnify the
20 points of comparison.
And the next exhibit, please?
750.
Does this show?
They're out of order.
Are they out of order?
Nods head up and down.
Sergeant Spinner, do you remember those exhibits I showed you earlier? Is the next one 748?
That's correct. 748.
And that would be a comparison
between the fingerprint found on item 317L, Lincoln, page 26, latent number 1, comparing the photographed latent fingerprint against the right index finger of Mr. Star Arvizio.
Arvizo?
Arvizo.
And how many individualizing characteristics did you find in that comparison?
25.
Would you please proceed to Exhibit 749?
I have it.
Does Exhibit 749 show the identification of the defendant's left thumb on the magazine entitled Hustler, Barely Legal?
Yes, sir, it does.
How many individualizing characteristics on this exhibit?
17.
I'd like to go to Exhibit 750 next. Is this the identification of the defendant's left thumb, or did I miss, is that it?
750 is a ninhydrin print.
That's a ninhydrin print, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
It's 750.
And is that the identification of Mr. Jackson's left thumb on the magazine Hustler, Barely Legal Hardcore?
Right. 317R, page 54.
How many?
Latent 1.
How many points of comparison in this exhibit?
18 total points.
Exhibit 751. Is this Gavin Arvizo's left middle finger in the same magazine, Hustler, Barely Legal Hardcore?
Page 52, marked Latent 1.
And how many individualizing characteristics did you find there?
We had 21 detailed.
21?
21.
752, please. Is this Gavin Arvizo's left middle finger found on the magazine Hustler, Barely Legal Hardcore, Sheriff's Item 317L?
That's correct. Latent 2, page 92.
How many individualizing characteristics did you find in that?
13.
13?
13.
Exhibit 753, please. It appears to depict Gavin Arvizo's left index finger, Sheriff's Item 317R, Hustler, Barely Legal Hardcore.
Correct. Page 92, marked Latent number 4.
And how many individualizing characteristics did you find on that print?
14 total.
Proceed to Exhibit 753, please. 54, please. Is that next in order? Does that depict the defendant's right thumb on the magazine Penthouse, Sheriff's Item 317S?
Correct. Page 63, Latent number 1.
And how many individualizing characteristics are in that?
16 total.
16?
16.
Exhibit number 755, please. And is that also the defendant's finger in Item 317S, Penthouse?
Yes, sir. Page 87, Latent, marked Latent number 1.
And how many individualizing characteristics in that print?
21.
Exhibit number 756, please.
I have it.
Okay. Is that the defendant's left thumb in the magazine, Visions of Fantasy?
Visions of Fantasy, Hard Rock Affair, page 3, marked Latent number 1, and we had again 21 points.
Okay. Item 757, please. Is that Gavin Arvizo's right middle finger in the magazine, Visions of Fantasy, or did I not?
I don't think you changed it. We need 758.
That's where we are.
Item 317, Y is Al Goldstein's 100 Best Adult Videos. It was from page A, marked Latent number 1. And it's the left index finger of Gavin Arvizo. We had 18 total points.
Is 757 right under that exhibit?
It's right here.
Okay. Let's do 757, then.
Okay. 757 is from item 317U, Union, page 10, marked Latent number 1.
That would be Gavin Arvizo's right middle finger?
That's correct, sir.
And how many individualizing characteristics in Exhibit 757?
20.
20. Is 759 next on that stack?
Correct.
Okay. And is that the defendant's right thumb on page 3 of item 321A, Playboy Special Edition, Girlfriends?
Yes, sir, it is.
And how many individualizing characteristics in that exhibit, please?
26.
26. Proceed to Exhibit 760, please.
I have 760.
Is that also the defendant's right thumb in the same magazine at page 29?
Yes, it is, sir.
And how many points of comparison in that exhibit?
Approximately 30.
Can we go to Exhibit 761, please?
I have it.
Exhibit 761 is that a positive identification of the defendant's left thumb on the magazine, Girls of Barely Legal.
Correct. Item 321E, page 1, Latent 1.
And how many individualizing characteristics in that diagram?
24.
Exhibit 762, please. And is that also the defendant's right thumb in the same magazine at page 7?
Page 7, marked Latent number 1.
How many individualizing characteristics in that?
19, 1 to 9.
Exhibit 763, please. This is Mr. Jackson's right thumb on the magazine, Finally Legal.
Yes, sir.
And how many individualizing characteristics on that exhibit?
16.
Is this also the exhibit that got switched into a different binder when it left your lab?
Yes, sir, it was.
Well, I would object and move to strike as being a leading question.
Sustained. Stricken.
Why does the picture say 321D?
The picture says 321D because when it left the Santa Barbara lab, it was evidently switched and mismarked with item 321F, Frank. When it got to Santa Maria, they relied on that identification when they did the photo documentation placard, so the placard would show on the whole picture the item number 321D, not F, Frank.
Did you verify that you made the right comparison?
Yes, I did.
And this is a photograph from which magazine, which page?
This would be a photograph from a magazine which was originally 321F, Frank, and the one that was mislabeled, and the one that Detective Sutcliffe and I depict was relied on that label when they did the photography.
Is there a woman's face in that CineScope image? Do you see the side of her face?
No, it must be the angle, sir.
Is Exhibit 764 next?
That's correct. 764.
Okay. And is that Mr. Jackson's right thumb on the magazine Club International, March 98?
Correct. Item 363M, Mary, page 57, Latent number 2.
And how many individualizing characteristics in that one?
19.
19. That's the end of the exhibits, Your Honor. Sergeant Spinner, on how many occasions did you review the fingerprint identifications that you made in this case?
Several.
And why did you do that?
I usually review my work after it's completed to make sure there's no problem, something that was either missed, just to make sure that there's no problems in the future. And I'll again review them before I go to court.
Okay. If there is an issue in your mind about an identification, what is your habit and custom?
I will correct. If there is a problem, I'll make every effort to correct that problem.
And how would you do that?
Write a report describing the issue at hand and what should be done, or what action should be taken or was taken.
Would you testify to a fingerprint that you had issues with?
No.
In this case, did you have issues with a fingerprint?
Yes, I did.
Do you recall which one it was?
I believe it was off of item number 317-0, Ocean. It was a thumbprint belonging to Mr. Jackson which was fraught with problems.
Okay. Is that the thumbprint that you testified in court today matched Mr. Jackson's thumb?
No, it is not.
With respect to the other print, what did you do to remedy the situation that you had with it?
The thumbprint?
Yes.
Yes, sir. I wrote a report changing the classification of the print from an identification to an inconclusive identification.
Did you engage in a peer review of the fingerprints that you've identified today in court under oath?
Yes, I did.
And how many people reviewed those findings?
2 additional people.
Please explain to the jury what the function of a peer review is.
A peer review is basically an extension of the ACE-V protocol methodology for fingerprints. It's also something recognized by a group known as SWGFST, which is a scientific working group for fingerprint work, and they have published guidelines in the past. And it's basically a way to verify what an individual has done and to kind of like, in a way, it would be like a blind test to see whether any problems were encountered, or whether there was a different way of doing things, or whether the identifications which were made are correct, and get any feedback from that individual, maybe a different way of doing something or different way of handling a situation.
And, you mentioned it's sort of a blind test. How does a peer review function?
The latent prints in the purported matches would be sent to an individual without any marks on them whatsoever, and just questions asked, do you agree or disagree?
Okay. And who did you use for the peer reviews in this case?
Initially, ID technician Heman was off on maternity leave at the time we did this. I used identification technician Mike Allmeyer from the Santa Barbara Police Department for the initial.
Have you known him for some time?
Yes, I have.
What does he do with the Santa Barbara Police Department?
He's an identification technician in their lab.
How long were you professionally affiliated with him?
Since he came to work for the sheriff's office initially, and then he went from the sheriff's office to the police department. I was going to guess about 13, 14 years.
I'm going to start going through some magazines with you, if that's all right. Did you process, and I'm talking, process, photograph, slice, and direct to be bagged, all the magazines that came to you during the Michael Jackson case?
That's correct, sir.
Okay. I'm going to go through these exhibits. And hopefully we'll do it very quickly, Your Honor. May I inquire from the well, Your Honor? It's quite a bit.
It's a problem for people to hear. So you can try it, but if they can't hear.
May I try that, Your Honor?
You can try.
Okay.
Don't get it too close to that other one.
Do you have a paper clip or something that I could? I'm going to hand you Exhibit 542, marked Sheriff's Item 363M. Is that one of the magazines that you processed and had placed in plastic sleeves?
Yes, it is, sir.
Your Honor, we'd move this exhibit into evidence.
It's admitted.
Exhibit 541? And I apologize, these are not going to be in order. What is that magazine?
It's item number 360L, and it's a plumper's magazine.
Is that one of the magazines that you processed, cut, placed in plastic sleeves?
Yes.
We'd move 541 into evidence.
You're going to end up getting feedback if you put that microphone too close to that one.
He did it.
You can use it, but not that close.
Okay. 541's been admitted, Judge?
It's admitted.
Exhibit 540?
Yes, sir. This is item number 363K, King.
Is that one of the magazines you processed, super glued, placed in?
Sliced and diced, yes, sir.
Move 540 into evidence.
It's admitted.
Exhibit 539, Item 6, Item 363J. Did you process, super glue, fume, place in plastic sleeves that exhibit?
Yes, sir, I did.
Move 539 in evidence, sir.
It's admitted.
Exhibit 538, Item 363I. Similarly, did you process that magazine, Sergeant?
Yes, I did.
Move 538 into evidence, Your Honor.
It's admitted.
Exhibit 537, which sheriff's item is that?
That is 363H, Henry.
Did you look at it?
Yes, sir.
Did you process that item as well?
Yes, I did.
Mr. Nicola. Move that into evidence, Your Honor.
It's admitted.
Exhibit 536, Item 363G, as in golf. Did you process that item?
Yes, I did, sir.
Move it into evidence, Your Honor.
It's admitted.
I'm handing you Exhibit 535.
It's 363F, Frank.
Did you process that item?
Yes, sir, I did.
Move it into evidence, Your Honor.
It's admitted.
Exhibit 534, please.
363E, Edward.
Did you process that item?
Yes, I did.
Move it into evidence, Your Honor.
It's admitted.
Exhibit 532?
363C, Charles.
Move that into evidence, Your Honor. Did you process this?
Yes, I did.
May we move it into evidence, Your Honor?
It's admitted.
533, did you process that item?
Yes, I did. 363D, David.
Move that into evidence, Your Honor.
It's admitted.
Exhibit 531?
It's 363B, Boy.
Did you process that item?
Yes, I did.
Move that into evidence, Your Honor.
It's admitted.
Next I'm handing you Exhibit 530.
363A, Adam.
Did you process that item?
Yes, I did.
Move it into evidence, Your Honor.
It's admitted.
May I have just a moment to restack? Picking up with item exhibit number 543.
Item 363N, Nora. I processed this.
Move that into evidence, Your Honor.
It's admitted.
Exhibit 544?
It's item 363O, Ocean.
Did you process that one?
Yes, I did.
Move it into evidence, Your Honor.
It's admitted.
Exhibit 545?
Item 363P, Paul. I processed this.
We'd move that into evidence, Your Honor.
It's admitted.
Why don't you pull that out for just a second?
Inside the front cover there's a little placard, isn't there?
This is the photo slip I used to mark the magazine when I took the original photograph.
Just hold that up for the jury.
I created this little slip when I took the original photographs of it so the photographs could be filed correctly, the correct item number, when they were put in the computer and retained as evidence.
And that's kept loosely in the binder?
Yes, it is.
Is that how 321 DNF got switched at some point?
I would.
I'm going to object. That's a leading question.
I'll withdraw it.
Sustained.
Exhibit 546?
This is item number 636Q, Queen. And I did process this item.
You did the same thing I did.
363, excuse me.
Move that into evidence, Your Honor.
546 is admitted.
Exhibit 547?
363R, Robert. Yes, I processed this.
We'd like to move that into evidence as well, Your Honor.
547 is admitted.
Exhibit 548?
This is item number 363S, Sam.
Did you process that item?
Yes, I did.
We'd like to move that into evidence, Your Honor.
548 is admitted.
549 is next.
Item number 363T, Tom.
Did you process that exhibit?
Yes, I did.
We'd like to move that into evidence, Your Honor.
It's admitted.
Exhibit 550.
Item 363U, Union, processed.
By you?
I did process it, yes.
Move that into evidence, Your Honor.
It's admitted.
Exhibit 551?
363V, Victor, and I did process this item.
We'd like to move that into evidence, Your Honor.
It's admitted.
If I may take a moment. I'll show you Exhibit 580.
All right, we're going to take our break, 5 minutes early.